Okay, members, we are now streaming, so.
Chair, my camera may or may not stay on depending on the connection issues.
Yeah, but we can see you and hear you now, Colin, so.
Okay, top.
Okay, so members. Welcome to our Corporate and Region Scrutiny Committee on the 14th of May. Thank you all for coming and all the officers, staff in the room here. Thank you all for your time. This meeting will be live streamed and a recording made available via the council's website.
We're streaming it, Chair.
It did come up and say,
Yeah, we're recording on Teams.
are we streaming yet? But it's being recorded so we can download it at a later date.
Yeah.
Okay, members, so it will be the same. It will be able to be viewed at a later date. So therefore your images and audio of those individual speakers will be publicly available to all via the recording on the council's website. Okay, item agenda 1, to receive apologies for absence.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from councillors Thomas, Councillor Kent, and Williams, Walter Williams as well, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a roll call then, please?
Yep, okay, thank you, Chair. Councillor Adams.
Thankfully, very present.
Councillor Enright.
Chair, here.
Councillor Christine Forehead.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Fussell. Councillor Jeremiah.
Present.
Councillor Johnson.
Alma,
Councillor Gare. Councillor Jones. Howell. Councillor Priest. Councillor Mann. Councillor McConnell.
Present.
Councillor Thomas.
Present.
Councillor Whittle.
Amen.
And Councillor Wright.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
some message from PB. Maybe it was on. Okay. Okay, thank you, members. Item 2, declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and prejudicial interest in accordance in respect of any item of business on this agenda, in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution, and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Are there any declarations from anyone?
No hands raised, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 3, to approve and sign the following minutes. Corporate and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee held on the 20th of February. It did seem quite a long time ago, didn't it? Okay, page 1, members. Now, it's only for accuracy, not you did the beat. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Okay, nothing. Okay, can you members pass you over to Mark for the vote?
Thank you.
Your hands up.
Yes, we just need something to move and second.
So can I have a move in a second, please?
Yeah, I moved it.
Okay. Lindsay and Leroy. And go turn the room and I've done it. Okay, so your polls come up. If you haven't got a poll pop up, I'm thinking. Carl, did you get a poll come up? Colin, did you have a poll come up?
Nothing yet, Chair.
But nothing yet, Chair.
Okay, how do you want your vote, Colin?
Nothing yet.
You like to vote then, Colin, firmly?
Oh, yeah, vote in favour, Chair.
Al, did you just come up?
No, nothing, Chair. I'm for.
You're for, okay. Anyone else not get a vote?
Yeah, I'm for chair. I've done it with me. Thank you, person. I would vote again.
That's good, everyone's voted then.
Yep. that's
Chair,
good.
just to let you know, those two individuals are identifying as unverified. So that's
Yeah.
probably why they're not coming up.
That's why I did ask Gary, thanks, we did see that, we don't know why it's coming up with that, but
Okay,
it's just.
thank you, Chair. So with 3 verbal votes for, that's carried unanimously with 11 votes for, no against and no abstentions.
Thank you all very much. Okay, members, agenda item 4.
Sorry, Chair, Councillor Priest is in the meeting now, I noticed.
All right, I remember.
Yeah, hi.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry, boys, a bit late coming back. All right, cheers.
Okay. Good night. Agenda item 4, consideration of any matter referred to this committee in accordance with the call-in. Anything, Mark?
No matter's been called in for this meeting, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 5, corporate and regeneration scrutiny committee forward work programme. Pass over to Mark again.
Thank you, Chair. Members are asked to consider the forward work programme for the Corporate and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee alongside the Cabinet forward work programme in FACS and make any suggestions for any additions or amendments within the criteria set out in Appendix 3. The next meeting for this committee will be on the 25th of June. You will have a presentation on recruitment members. And as you can see, there's also a draft economic regeneration strategy report for the 25th of June. And there's an additional report members, which isn't in the forward work programme, but it's requested that a revised performance management framework report comes to that meeting on the 25th of June. And we'll also have an information item on the Welsh Language Standards annual report, as you can see from your facts. So if members are happy, I'd like to seek permission to publish the forward work programme onto the council's website. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, the recommendation was page 9 of your packs. Can I have a move and a seconder, please, for this report?
Move it. I move, Chair. I move. Oh, go on. I second it then, Chair.
Councillor Priest, Councillor Adams. Okay, till the vote then. If you don't get it up, just shout out and tell me your.
For, Chair. Councillor Thomas.
Councillor Thomas, Councillor Mann,
Four, Chair.
or Councillor Whittle.
I'm for chair.
Thank you. Did you get one come up, Denver?
No, I waited. No, I got. Sorry, I was only seeing my hand. No, I haven't had one come up, Chair. I'm buying 4 anyway.
Okay, thank you.
That's been carried unanimously, Chair, with 4 verbal votes. We got 12 votes for, no against and no abstentions.
Okay, thank you very much, members. Item 6. You'll be glad we're not going through all these reports. To receive and consider the following cabinet reports. So you can see, last Mark.
Shall I go through them, Chair?
I would just ask that, you know, we've all got the reports in front of us. No, there was none called in,
Yeah, and none of those cabinet reports have been brought forward, Chair.
so none brought forward, so there were some of them that did with the reserve, you know, they dealt with some of them anyway, so during the budget. Okay, members, so on to the programme now.
Chair, before you carry on, I'm just wondering why so many of us are coming up as unverified. I mean, I joined through the link that we were sent, and I assumed it would be the correct thing to do, but.
It is. Okay. We'll find out, Colin, because I think if you look at the AGM last week, when I was online, I could see so many people unverified and. Mr. Edmonds is going to
Can't even answer directly, Councillor Matt. This does happen normally around the time with Microsoft updates, but let us do some digging and find out what the challenges are, because I think all members that are showing as unverified won't have the polls coming through. So we do need to crack it so that calling out the verbal votes can be kind of reduced.
Okay, go ahead.
So we don't know what it is, Colin, but there's, you know, fingers crossed and get it fixed. But that's technology, you know, and as Lindsay would say, if you were here, you could put your hand up. So, am I right, Lindsay?
Yeah, I agree, Chair.
I got my hand up, Chair.
I've been in the post office for years now. I don't trust them.
Anyway, thank you, members. Right. Item 7, the use of performance information and service user perspective and outcomes report from Audit Wales. I believe our Deputy Leader, Councillor Jimmy Pritchard, is going to be leading this.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to present to the committee the Audit Wales report called The Use of Performance Information, Service User Perspective and Outcomes, which was issued in February 2024. And Audit Wales will present the report. Audit Wales conducted a review across all local authorities of how service user perspective and outcome information is provided to senior leaders and how the information is used in performance reporting. Audit Wales noted in their report that they focused on performance information provided to senior officers and senior members about service user perspective and outcomes and how this information is used. We did not undertake a full review of the Council's performance management arrangements or an in-depth review of the quality of the data that the Council collects. Neither did the review focus on engagement with the service users on specific service changes or the development of policies and strategies. In this case, that would be for our Council Director performance and corporate performance that was used for Audit Wales evidence base. As Audit Wales are here tonight to present the report, I will hand over to the Chair to invite Audit Wales to continue to present the findings of the report, which is attached as Appendix A, and the Council's response is attached as Appendix B. A final note is that the actions to address the recommendations will go on to be monitored by our Governance and Audit Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Leader. And can I invite from Audit Wales, Sarah Jean Byrne, please? Hi, Sarah Jean.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. Yes, my name's Sarah Jane Byrne. I'm from Audit Wales. I'm the Performance Audit Manager that looks after Caerphilly. I'm also joined this evening by my colleague Jason Williams, who undertook the main bulk of the work. What I'll do is I'll just quickly, to echo really what the Deputy Leader said in terms of that this is a piece of work we have done at all 22 councils. We will be publishing a national report in the next month or so. And I guess just a note on that to say that the findings across the piece really were quite similar to those of Caerphilly's now. And, you know, one of the messages in our national report is that we will be looking for councils to address the recommendations that we've been issuing to them. I think, you know, just to kind of underline why we felt it was so important to look at this information about outcomes and service user perspective, because, you know, essentially, you know, councils are there to deliver services to members of the public. They use public money, so it's really important that senior leaders have that information to help them understand if they're achieving what they set out to through their objectives, to understand what service users are thinking. But just to reiterate the point that what this review was not, it was not a review of the council's consultation engagement arrangements. We didn't look at how the council engages with service users, for example, on specific service changes or on drafts of policies, those kinds of things. Neither did we do a detailed review of data quality. We were looking at the council's arrangements to assure itself around data quality. So just to be clear, you know, we haven't done a detailed review of data quality per se. So I just wanted to kind of set that context first, really, because I think it's really important to be clear what the review was about and what it wasn't, but that echoes much of what the introduction has already covered, really. If it's okay, Chair, I'll hand over to my colleague Jason, who will talk you through the particular findings for Caerphilly, and we're happy to take any questions after that. I'm assuming the officers may want to talk through their organisational response as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah Jane.
Thank you. Yeah, hi, I'm Jason Williams, Senior Auditor with Audit Wales, and as Sarah Jane mentioned, I was responsible for a lot of the work put into sort of developing and going through the review of this. So just to sort of recap, the key question we asked was, does the council performance data enable senior leaders to understand the service user perspective and the outcomes of its activities to effectively manage its performance? Get my screen ready. Right, okay. So what we explored was the performance information that was provided to senior leaders on the perspective of service users, information on the outcomes of the council's activities, and arrangements to ensure that data provided is accurate. Our overall finding was that the council provides limited performance information to enable senior leaders to understand the perspective of service users and the outcomes of its activities. So the review's findings that help provide the overall finding were as follows, and I'll go through each one of them, and I'll just pick out a small number of bits. You'll have access to the report, so I'll be sort of skimming through some points of the report, just to sort of hopefully give a bit more clarity. So one of the findings was that the performance information provided to senior leaders gives them limited insight into the perspective of service users. We found that the performance information that was provided to senior leaders does not enable senior leadership to have a comprehensive understanding of the service user perspective. We did find some examples, such as tenant satisfaction surveys, information within the monitoring evaluation reports used in the Education Directorate, and Directorate performance assessments, which also include a section to record customer information. Where examples were found, there were examples found, but they were across some areas, and it was not the case across all areas and reports that we'd looked at. So it was difficult for us to then see how senior leaders would be able to fully understand how well services and policies are effectively meeting the needs of service users from the information they're given. The next finding was performance information provided to senior leaders mostly focuses on outputs and activities rather than evaluating impact. There was information within the education monitoring and evaluation reports, for example, which would help senior leaders understand the impact of its services. Performance data and quarterly performance assessments also contained limited information on outcomes. Most of the information focuses on outputs and activities, though. For example, the Directorate performance assessments that were introduced. They include sections for directorates to record their progress in achieving outcomes. But directorates generally were providing information which was about the activities and the outputs in this section rather than the outcomes and evaluating the outcomes. So it was difficult for senior leaders to then understand the impact that the council's activities were having and meeting the council's objectives. The next finding was that the council has limited arrangements to ensure that the performance data reflecting the service user perspective and outcomes information is accurate. So the council has limited arrangements to check the accuracy and quality of data and performance information relating to the service user perspective and the outcomes. The council trusts its staff, which is seen as a positive, and there are performance team sense checks which take place, but the focus was generally in that extent, from what we saw, was on anomalies from anticipated levels of performance. So if something looked different to what it usually looked of, it drew attention to be checked. The council does not have arrangements in place to then routinely check the accuracy of its performance information. So, as was mentioned earlier, we did not do a data quality review, so we're not saying the data is inaccurate. What we were looking at are the arrangements around ensuring the data is accurate. The next finding was, as the information provided on outcomes and the perspective of service users is limited, the extent to which the council can use this information to help it achieve its outcomes will also be limited. So, of course, as the council provides limited performance information to its senior leaders, it is logical that the extent to which the council uses the service user perspective and outcomes information will also be limited. Where we did find examples of the council providing information on service user perspective and outcomes, we found examples then of the council using the information to make changes. An example is the evaluation of the Youth Development Forum, where the council identified actions to improve engagement with youth groups. and how it communicates on its outcomes to them. And then the final finding that we have is that the council's review of its performance information arrangements have not focused on improving information to help senior leaders better understand the service user perspective and outcomes. That's a lot of words. In July 2020, the council commissioned a review of information, insight and intelligence, and that was to help it understand and improve its use of data. The council also introduced directorate performance assessments, which was a key part of what the evidence we were looking at. Our review found that the information review that they did and the directorate performance assessments have not resulted in the council strengthening the information it provides to senior leaders to help them understand the service user's perspective and outcomes of its activities. The council will not seem to compare the type of information it collects or it collects the information it collects or the methods on service users, the methods of collecting information, sorry, on service users' perspective or the outcomes. And that would not compared with similar organisations, in effect, to help it learn how organisations are providing information about service user perspective and outcomes to help strengthen its own arrangements. So having gone through that, having gone through those findings which led to the overall finding, we came with 3 recommendations. Recommendation 1 was on information on the perspective of the service user, and that the council should strengthen the information it provides to senior leaders. And this, of course, is to help them have a better understanding of how well services and policies are meeting the needs of service users. Recommendation 2 was on progress towards outcomes. The council should strengthen the information provided to senior leaders to help them evaluate whether the council is delivering its objectives and its intended outcomes. And recommendation 3 with regards to quality and accuracy of data, and that the council needs to assure itself that it has robust arrangements to check the quality and accuracy of its data. Again, it's not about finding that the data was inaccurate, it was the arrangements in ensuring the data is accurate. So this report was submitted to council alongside an organisation response form, an ORF, and so that was with the final report. And it was responded to by the council, and then a meeting took place between myself and the council's business improvement manager, where we went through some of the findings and some of the additional details. So maybe, Chair, having gone through that, you'll want to hear from the director on their response to the report and maybe the recommendations as laid out in the ORF. I can add more in, obviously, but whether I hand back to you at this point.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jason, and thank you, Sarah.
Forgive me.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, we'll go to questions then, will we? Do you want to reply to Jason's?
Yeah, if that's okay, Chair. I think colleagues in Audit Wales will recognise that this has been a pretty challenging piece of work for them across Wales. There was reference earlier on to this being an area that pretty much all councils in Wales are not particularly good at present. And I think in my early conversations with Audit Wales, they felt this was as much about kickstarting this piece of work as it was kind of providing the headlines to demonstrate where we might improve things. It's an interesting one for me because I think the audit work was done on the basis of a relatively narrow review of the council's performance information, so pretty much looking at the DPAs, and also on the basis of a relatively small number of interviews with officers and members to draw these conclusions. And I think what we've seen and what we see here, whilst we were not content with anything that's put forward as something we wouldn't want to do better, what was interesting was when we sat down with Sarah Jane to talk through some of the other examples that perhaps hadn't formed part of the field work. That was the point at which the education MERs started to demonstrate that actually, as a senior leader in this organisation, I have a huge amount of access to this kind of stuff, but that wasn't part of the initial field work. But that's not on Audit Wales. We would have had the opportunity to have brought that to the table as well. I think when we shared that, Audit Wales very helpfully accepted that there were some good examples of us doing this, but we are deliberately adjusting our approaches and our actions based on what our service users are telling us. but that perhaps isn't as consistent across the whole organisation as it is within the education service. It very much needs to be that way in the education service. You know, we're about to be inspected by Estin. We've spent 3 or 4 years building and embedding this management evaluation system. It's not simply as straightforward as turning that on in the other parts of the organisation, but I think we recognise there are certainly some lessons that can be learned from that particular approach in strengthening our overall approach. Members will also recognise from the earlier discussion on the forward work programme for this committee that we'll be bringing you a call on 25th of June around the new performance management framework. It won't surprise you to note that a number of the changes that we reference in this organisational response form, we will be trying to introduce through that new performance management framework. So I think there's a degree of acceptance. I won't say, you know, there is an element of frustration. We would like to think we'd be better in this space. There is certainly acceptance that we can improve. We believe we are putting the arrangements in place to meet this brief. I think probably the one area we were remiss of me not to mention it, because I know Roz and colleagues have been kind of in dialogue with me on it, is this last recommendation in terms of the quality and the accuracy of data. So Audit Wales have already said they haven't tested the accuracy of our data. They have offered some views in terms of the degree to which we have assurance of our data. And aside from the work that the performance team do in triangulating and sense checking everything that comes through the DPAs, we also consider those at our SMTs and then at CMT, and on occasion these will also come into joint scrutiny and onto cabinet. So we would probably say, whilst we could add to the assurance by doing perhaps data samples, giving to a little bit, etc., we feel comfortable with the arrangement as it currently stands, but naturally we will think about testing some of the other aspects of this just to kind of strengthen things further. So I think from my perspective, Chair, both Audit Wales and the organisation have done a lot through this. I'm very pleased with the support we've had from Audit Wales in finding a more balanced approach to put before, a more balanced report to put before you this evening. I think we probably could have tested a bit more widely, deeper. We could have thrown more evidence in to try and address this. It's clearly an area that all councils across Wales are going to have to get better at. And I look forward to sharing that performance management framework report with you all in due course to start demonstrating how we're going to do that again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards. Okay, members, have we any questions then for either our director or for the Wales? Councillor Mann, I did say I would call you in.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, was it Jason or Jeremy from the audit office pointed out the things that I mentioned earlier. I mean, it seems the opinion is there's not enough information going to senior leaders now. I'm not sure whether that's senior elected leaders, whether it's senior officers, or maybe both. I don't know whether that could be clarified.
Okay, Jason, could you clarify who would you thought would have been?
Chair, I can pick that up if you like.
Okay, yes, okay.
So just to clarify, by senior leaders, we're talking about senior members and senior officers here. So those that would regularly receive performance information. So that's what we mean by senior leaders, just to be clear.
Good.
Thank you, Chair. There are a couple of others, if I may. There are comments, for example, on page 30 about providing information rather than, but not evaluating it. There's the comment on the next page about limited arrangements to ensure the performance data is accurate. And further on, there's a comment which seems that we're not learning much from other organisations. I mean, if you're to be uncharitable, you could read this as an organisation which is, maybe going across the Atlantic without a compass or something. We're not really know where we're going. Now, I recognise what Ed said about addressing various things, but this doesn't read well as far as I'm concerned. Anyway.
There was an excellent question there, Colin. I don't really get one.
Well, the question really is why we seem to be providing little little recognition of the value of performance indicators. I'm wondering why that is, and why we're not learning from other organisations.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to clarify again, Councillor Mann, in terms of this report, focus was the Director of Performance Assessments. I can comment as a senior leader within the organisation, I'm sure Mark would feel the same, that the DPA is not the only document that we use to determine our impacts and things that we might need to adjust in course. So it's important to focus on the fact that this audit looked at that particular document and framework, and as I mentioned earlier on, specifically the MERs in education show a very, very detailed and well embedded set of processes that give me accurate information on the impact of everything we're doing across education. So I don't want you to be confused by that. In terms of the limited arrangements and performance data being accurate, again, I point you back to what Audit Wales said earlier on. This was not a test or assessment of the accuracy of our data, also a comment on the arrangements by which our data could be improved or data collection could be improved. There's no reference to it being poor or not sufficient. And in terms of learning lessons from other organisations, again, that's not something that we do purely through the DPA. It's something we do every day. I'm sure you've been involved in the mobilising team Caerphilly work across the way. Indeed, every single project that forms part of that transformation reaches out to other organisations to learn from them and ensure that we can take best practice forward. So hopefully that clarifies the points you raised.
Yeah, you mentioned education. That you know, there's a lot more going on in the organisation than education, isn't there? And does that mean there are lots of other places where this is not happening?
Chair, did you want me to come in there?
Yeah, if you can quickly, please, Sergeant.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of clarify, you know, we looked at essentially the core kind of public performance reports and mechanisms that the council uses to manage and monitor its performance. And I think as the report has shown, we did find some examples in education and we did find some examples in other areas. But I think given that, you know, that we have been the importance of having information to help understand outcomes and service user perspective is not new. And hence the reason why our reports are quite stark on this. You know, and the director is right. You know, it has been, I think, you know, we've had lots of conversations with councils about this. It's been quite a challenging piece of work. I think it's fair to say we've had constructive conversations with Caerphilly Council about this piece of work, and we're assured about the responses that we've had, and we're keen to see what, you know, what improvements the council makes on the back of that. But based on our work, yes, we didn't find that there was a huge amount of information outside of education that would help the council understand things like outcomes and the perspective of service users. Our national report will go into that a bit more in terms of the overall messages. As I said, you know, the picture across Wales was quite similar really to that of Caerphilly's, and we're hoping that this piece of work will really, as Ed said, kind of kickstart things and shine a light on this, because it is a key part of the council's performance management arrangements. But, you know, to be clear again, you know, we looked at, you know, certain things. We didn't go into absolute detail on absolutely everything, particularly around consultation and that kind of thing. So to be assured on that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. It sounds like there's a lot of work to be done now.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Councillor Whittle, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask, is this the first time the council has been audited on this particular subject? And do the auditors feel that, I've read some of it, but I can't find it now, typical, that over the course of the next 12 months, there'll be 2 audit committees that will actually look at these particular issues and explain to the audit committee what is being done to address them? That's the first question. If I then may have another one.
Yeah, for permission. Do you want to come in there, Ed, or?
The auditors.
Oh,
well, the auditors.
The auditors are. Sarah Jane?
Yes, just to come back in terms, I think the question was, have we audited this area before? Yeah. I think it's fair to say we haven't done a particular piece of work on this aspect since I can remember. We may have looked at performance management arrangements generally, but I'm not sure, to be Caerphilly, whether we have done that recently. But it's not a piece of work we have gone into specifics about. But You know, I think we're very aware, as I said, the importance of having that information. We felt it was the right piece of work to do. So I'm not aware we've done a particular piece of work on this recently, though, at the council anyway. Thank you.
And the second part of that question for you, Chair, was do you think that over the next 12 months, I think that I read somewhere there'll be 2 audit committees that will look at this issue, and do you think that's quick enough?
Well, we got the one coming now, the June one. We got the framework coming. And then it'll be monitored, you know, by the audit committee through the regulator, Becca. So
people seem content that that is enough. We will find out in 12 months. I hope it is, but we will find out. The second, perhaps I think, is the most important question is 5.3 says, the report says the council's self-assessment report, and there's nothing worse than a self-assessment report because people tend to mark themselves, I think, higher than they really should. That's my opinion. It does not enable senior leadership to have a comprehensive understanding of the service user perspective. In education, got what, almost 100 schools. What is the service user in that school? Is it the child? Is it the parent? Is it the teaching staff? How would you measure a comprehensive understanding of all of those service users?
Spare a couple of weeks, Councillor. Like I said, I'm walk you through every single management evaluation report. You make a good point about who the service user is. There are multiple stakeholders. They all have a view. What we have developed in education is that every aspect of the service comes into the education management team on a rolling fortnight program. The person in charge of that part of the service writes an evaluation report, says what we do, why we do it, what the impact is, what needs to change. That is not then marked by the person that drafts that response. It is challenged by the education management team. And again, Troy will come back and say, well, that's still the service area marking its own photo. So what we also do then is we routinely bring in head teachers, chairs of governors, the cabinet member, members of the public, youth forum, the people who are actually consumers of our service. And they come into that management forum and they also challenge what that service leader has written about the way the service is operating. And helps us form a view as to what needs to change. So we have got some really well developed examples that we shared with Audit Wales of this actually being something that we do really well in that part of the organisation. It was something that Sarah suggested we might want to think about rolling out broadly. But as I said earlier on, you can't just kind of flick a switch on that. We've been embedding this practice now for many years. If it will be helpful, and I'm very, very happy to sit down and kind of share some of that stuff with you. It certainly provides me as a senior leader with absolute assurance we're doing in education is reviewing, revising, monitoring and changing our activity and making sure that what we do does provide impact in a way that kind of demonstrates exactly what I think this report is trying to demonstrate more widely.
Could I thank the director for that? As a chair of governors, I'm in the school that I chair at least twice a week. This very Monday, we were going through a similar exercise with just a small cross-section of parents and some teaching staff as well. But part of our understanding as governors of how the school is performing was that we asked the pupils as well. And there will be some who will say, well, maybe the younger pupils shouldn't be asked. I disagree. And I think there may even be some who say the older pupils shouldn't be asked. I strongly disagree because there's nothing like the opinions of young people, especially in comprehensive school. It's quite fascinating. If ever you've been questioned, and I certainly have, by large groups of young people in comprehensive schools, it is absolutely fascinating. And what they get out of school is a different perspective to what perhaps people of my generation, your generation, and other generations got out of school. But whether it is successful or not, you cannot measure, in my opinion, by pieces of paper and tick boxes and say we had 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. Because if the very weakest child at the start of the education has improved by the end, then quite frankly, I'm happy that someone has done their job. And I don't quite know how, with the greatest respect to audit people, how you audit that. Genuinely don't. I genuinely don't. I'm not being popular.
Yeah, go on.
Just to, again, reiterate what you said about the value of the pupil voice. Won't surprise you to know we've got a management evaluation report on the value of the pupil voice that the pupils fed into. Completely support what you said in terms of this all being about impact. And hopefully, if you're up, I look forward to sharing some of that stuff with you.
Interesting.
I would just add there, Lindsay, the schools I've been involved with, I know from the high school comp, you have the head boy and the head girl coming to each governance meeting giving reports. I know in the primary school with pupil parliament and things like that there. So I think pupils' voices are taken into account, you know.
It's great.
So we'll look forward to the framework. Is there any other questions on this? Oh, Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I put my name up for a question quite early because I wasn't able to bring it up in the pre-meeting because of my issues. So this is one, and I'm looking at the recommendations, and we have the council should strengthen in one, the council should strengthen in the second, and then the council needs to assure itself that it has robust arrangements. And we know that that's something we will strive for at every point that we need to. So a question here for Jason and Sarah Jane, if necessary, and I'm sure Ed will come in as well, is that did limited information to senior managers and leaders appear to impact seriously on any issues of reports from service users, whether they were individuals or some of our organizations who we have to serve? And I can also say that in the upcoming audit committees, we will, if necessary, request extra information on some of these reports, even if we have to have them every meeting.
Okay, Sarah Jane or Jason, one of you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess just I'm not entirely clear, sorry, Councillor, what you were asking. Were you asking our view in terms of how limited the information was, or whether there was anything we saw in the information that showed
the fact
any
that
concerns
it's in the report about limited information seems to have various connotations. Did any of that impact seriously on any of the issues that we weren't able to very quickly sort out for either individuals or groups?
Yeah, so we didn't look into that kind of level of detail, to be honest, because what we were looking at is the information in the core performance report. So obviously, if we saw that information, you know, for example, the examples that the director talked about in education, tenant survey, that kind of thing, it was more about looking at whether that information was there rather than digging into that to see, you know, anything underpinning that. So I'm not sure if that quite answers your question, to be honest, but I think, you know, we were looking at that kind of the level of that information as opposed to what was that saying. We weren't looking at whether the council had done a particular piece of engagement, what that was showing them, and then how they used that. This is very much around the performance information aspect of it. So, you know, for example, we weren't looking at whether the council had consulted a particular group of service users, what they said about that, and how that had shaped or influenced the decisions that the council went on to make. So I'm not sure if that was the kind of particular angle you were coming from. Sorry if I
yes, it was,
you.
as I say, the impact, how serious it might have been, but you couldn't go into that much detail. I understand that. So
no,
there we go.
Sorry, just I guess if I could just come back on that, Chair. I think the key thing that we were looking for here is, you know, the council sets itself, you know, corporate objectives, it sets out the kinds of outcomes it's looking to achieve. And what we were looking for is performance information, which would help councils understand, well, were they achieving what they set out to? You know, what were service users telling them about the extent to which they were doing that? You know, and as Jason explained, what we tended to find in the main was most information was quite descriptive, talked about what you were doing, you know, the activities, the number of workshops or whatever and things like that, as opposed to the so what aspect of it. And that's really important, isn't it? That's a key part of understanding if you're actually achieving what you set out to. So I appreciate that probably doesn't quite answer your question, but I think it's probably worth just reiterating that point. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, some questions can't be answered exactly how the questioner wants the answer, as long as we know that we need more information and are able then to defend the decisions that were made and why they were made from the policies that we've adopted over the years. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Mike. And I think, Mike, when we start looking at the framework, would I be right there to say that that will be making up a lot of the questions and answers that we'll be looking for the next year anyway. So when we sit and look at that there, we can debate that there and find.
And what the team are also going to do, Chair, as part of that process is a survey of you as members to find out the kind of information that you want to see in part of that performance management framework. So this should be a real step forward for us.
And it'll be good, Mike, you feed down there then, especially from the audit committee perspective, then be good. Okay, members.
That's all.
The recommendations are on page 22 of your packs. It is recommended that scrutiny review and note the report as presented by Audit Wales. Actions to address the recommendations for improvement will be monitored by Governance and Audit Committee through the regulator tracker. So there is no need for a vote on this report, but it's been noted this evening. And can I thank you, Sarah Jane and Jason, for coming along and giving us your time.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, members, we'll move on to the next report. If any officers don't need to be here, you can leave. Or happy for you to stay, but if you want to leave, that's up to you. Okay. Agenda item 8, procurement reform. So we have Councillor Nigel George, the Cabinet Member for Corporate Services, Property and Highways. Are you able to give a report, Nigel?
Yeah, no problem.
That's
okay. Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to provide members of the Scrutiny Committee with an update in relation to the UK Central Government and Welsh Government procurement reform agendas. Give an overview of 3 new separate legislative requirements coming into force that supports these agendas, namely the Procurement Act 2023, Social Partnership and Public Procurement Wales Act 2023, Health Service Procurement Wales Act 2024, and finally, to provide an update on the Council's approach and position in readiness for the formal implementation of the Acts. The new procurement rules will introduce a major shake-up of the way the Council purchases goods, services and work. Whilst the new changes are not due to come into force until October 2024, plans are well underway to ensure the councils are ready to take advantage of the increased flexibility and transparency associated with the new rules. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Working members, what? Coming in here? Yeah, Ian is going to Ian Evans, the procurement manager, is going to give us a little bit of information.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As Councillor George explained there are 3 separate legislative requirements for Wales coming into force to support the new procurement regime. Each playing an important part of the new regime within Wales in terms of consolidating previous legislation such as utilities and defence into one act, which is the Procurement Act, and for Wales, the Interaction, Alignment and Wellbeing and Generations Act, and also helping procure health and certain social care services. There are certain differences within Wales than the wider UK. The UK and Welsh governments have recently confirmed that they are working towards a go-live date for the new rules of the 28th of October of this year. This announcement triggered the 6-month pre-implementation phase for contracting authorities such as Caerphilly to prepare for the new procurement regime. In Wales, in essence, we will have the Procurement Wales Regulations 2024. The report sets out the overarching requirements and principles of the new legislation. However, I've looked to summarise these into specific categories just to give members of scrutiny a bit more of a flavour of what sits underneath the actual acts themselves. So firstly, we have greater transparency. The term being used is transparency by design for the acts. Greater visibility for procurement pipelines and forward work programmes, publication of notices and information captured within contract register that will need to be published. The council are required to publish a contract pipeline or forward work programme at the beginning of every financial year. This is for any organisation with a spend of over 100 million. The introduction of a number of procurement lifecycle notices, circa 17 in total, that may need to be considered and published at certain stages of processes. Not all 17 in one process, I may add, but there are different notices across the board. Conflicts of interest assessments to manage and accurately record any known or potential conflicts of interest. Record keeping, publishing of decisions are all prevalent in the new regulations. The transparency report, which is included within Appendix 5 of the report, already demonstrated that council is taking forward various initiatives under the new rules. Going forward, publication of performance data linked to contracts of particular value and nature are also a requirement under the Acts. Better for the supply chain. Increased opportunities due to publication requirements. A central digital platform so suppliers upload basic information once and can be accessed across public sector organisations in Wales and the UK. This could be further developed in future phases, so we are told to cover decarbonisation, modern slavery, community benefits and wider social value initiatives. The council has for a number of years has worked with the local supply chain within Caerphilly, regionally and wider Wales to increase opportunities for suppliers to win work and create community benefits and local social value. There's a stronger prompt payment terms. Again, the importance of meeting this requirement will be by publishing information on a regular and recurring basis. New regulations on conditions for participation and supplier exclusions aim to simplify and provide more robust set of rules governing assessment of suppliers looking to participate in any public sector procurement, extending exclusion grounds to cover associated suppliers, connected persons, publicising lists of excluded suppliers. Value for money, flexibility. Refined procurement procedures. There's now two procedures in essence, single stage, like the current open procedure, and now the competitive procedure that the council can design. That can be done in consultation with the market and supply chain. However, there are clear rules on how you undertake those engagements and how you inform the market. There are increases in terms of direct award and the ability to direct award contracts. However, again, there's increased transparency rules and there are certain aspects that the direct award can be taken into account. Protect human, animal or plant life or health, to protect public order or safety. This is aligned to the outcomes of the recent pandemic. There are added flexibilities in crimes for frameworks, either setting frameworks up or using existing frameworks, the use of dynamic markets, which replaces the dynamic purchasing systems, and again, transparency is the core. The Triple P Act, as I refer to it, is aligned to the wellbeing goals, a framework to promote wellbeing of people of Wales by enhancing sustainable development through social partnership working, promoting fair work, and socially responsible procurement. Aspects of the Act include establishing a social partnership council, which will be done by a Welsh Government covering across working party and various stakeholders, improving the economic, environmental, social and cultural well-being of Wales, setting objectives, having a clear procurement strategy and the ability to report on strategy on an annual basis. Another aspect that's throughout the Procurement Acts is around contract management. And again, that's covered under the 3 Acts, covering full procurement lifecycle, planning, procurement, reviewing and compliance. couple of bodies will have reporting duties in relation to the social partnership and procurement duties. Yes, Triple P Act specifically focuses on two areas at the moment, which is construction and outsourcing and associated subcontracts at this time. However, it's our understanding they'll go into different commodities as the new legislation is embedded. At the moment, we'll be looking at major construction contracts with a value of 2 million, which will have certain public clauses included. Welsh Government is to publish model clauses for major construction contracts within specified categories, and these cover payments, employment, compliance, training, subcontracting, and the environment. Officers within Caerphilly are actively participating in the process to develop these clauses. Outsourcing service contracts, again, Welsh Government is to publish the Public Services Outsourcing and Workforce Code, which is to include model contract clauses. The Act in its current guide does provide some information and guidance around this. However, we'll be looking to further enhance this leading up to the 28th of October. And then an important aspect of the SPPP Act is not just procurement focused. There are other aspects as well for the organisation to consider. I mentioned about contract management. Again, transparency is key on this in publishing key contractual information as part of our ongoing duty, and publication of when contracts expire, if contracts are terminated, why they terminated, and there's various other aspects for us to consider. Learning development is a key area that's been in discussions with UK and Welsh Government over a period of time now. A number of the procurement team within Caerphilly have undertaken the learning and development, which has been produced by the UK Government Commerce College, and is titled Transforming Public Procurement. This is a certified programme which includes 9 modules and competency tests. Following completion of this, the team members will be able to attend advanced deep dive courses. Welsh Government e-learning models are due to come out in June. The team are actively contributing to the contact and testing the proposed modules. To note, these modules don't duplicate what's already been put in place by UK Government, but they're supplementary to take into account the added acts and the added requirements for us within Wales. UK and Welsh Government have produced a series of knowledge drops, providing guidance on changes to procurement regs, and we within Caerphilly have circulated that to all users across the organisation back in February. And it's important for us going forward to build the knowledge, capacity and capability across the council by additional information and planned sessions. As Councillor George touched upon, the new regime is a major shake-up of how we undertake procurement within the UK. This comes about following Brexit. And the council are ready to take advantage of the increased flexibility and transparency associated with the new rules. Finally, as part of the report, we've set a getting ready action plan. And it's important, even though we were looking at an October date, we wanted to ensure we had key areas for us to consider and work in conjunction with UK and Welsh Government on how an action plan should be looking for any public sector organisation within the UK and certainly within Wales. So the action plan covers in 4 key areas, which is people, which we look at capability, capacity, learning and development, contract management, and of course the mobilising team Caerphilly agenda. Processes and policies, enhancing our procurement strategy going forward. Again, transparency, having robust... Sorry?
I was going back to us, okay.
I think you had a question.
He does, but...
And Welsh procurement policies overseas. Systems, practice, OLAS, data review and collection, and again, transparency. And finally, transitions, up-to-date contract register across the organisation. Having the ability to publish contract pipelines and forward work programme and a planned activity for procurement over the next 18 months. Any questions?
Well, you did, but you scared them off now. So my question, it's a 1-word answer. Yes or no? Because we wasn't that long ago when we were here last, wasn't it? Was it?
That might mean cybersecurity, Chair.
Oh, that might be that day, yeah. That might be the security.
Yes.
But the thing is, when we get new laws in, right, it's always good if they're any good. So in your opinion, yes or no, do these new laws improve or make it worse?
Tell me if it would be. Yes, but we have, I think, made it difficult for ourselves in Wales with the additional legislation requirements that's come down the track via the I call it the SCP Act, and also we've got the Health Services Procurement Wales Act. So there are different legislations that I know Welsh Government are tackling with at the moment on how best they can pull this into a cohesive set of regulations moving forward. I know I got Liz by the side of me here. Obviously, Liz is the head of procurement. Worked with Liz for decades. I was going to say centuries, Liz, but decades now. This
boundaries now.
This has always been something we highlighted quite early on when they were looking to update the legislation, is how easy we can make it for ourselves in Wales.
Do you want to add anything there?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a view very similar to Ian. We have made it difficult. I've attended the Public Accounts Committee within Welsh Government and fed back on all these legislations before they come into law. I believe the procurement regulations as they stand today provides us with all the flexibility that we require to deliver for a public service. But we've got the new legislation, we need to make the most of it. I think Caerphilly are in a good place. I'd like to say the team worked hard to get us to this position. They've taken on a lot of training and they've worked with Welsh Government to really challenge the way this is going to be implemented. I feel Caerphilly's in a good place. However, we will need to get our reporting right and we will need to get our pipelines right. We've got extensive contracts registered in operation within procurement at the moment, but we need to make sure that all service areas contribute to that going forward and are very clear, because the supply chain will be able to challenge us if we don't.
I think I can, before I go to Kerry's taking my hand down as well. What we do normally. I think when I think I speak for every member here, but what we want to see on procurement is as close to Caerphilly as possible. Close to the borough, then Wheels, and then if we have to send it out elsewhere. But we would rather as much think, does this make it easier or harder for us? Because if they're asking for more, that you have to share out more and more scrutiny on it, does that mean that we have to kind of go for, instead of going local, we would have to go from China, because it's 25p an item cheaper, things like that. Or does this still allow us to try and source as much local as possible?
I think we've got that flexibility now. This will not make it any more difficult for us. It should make it easier for us. We are totally committed to looking after the local supply chain. However, we only produce so much within Wales, and there are commodity areas that unfortunately we do need to go abroad for. When you look at our IT procurement and all our laptops, we don't manufacture them in Wales, unfortunately. And a lot of the components do come from China, and we rely on those global supply chains. But where we can do it local, we will.
I think I'm speaking for all members on that. You say,
Chair, it's interesting. I was listening to Radio Wales in the car on the way over the mountain here, and 2% of clothes purchased in Britain are made in Britain. 2%. And when you look at all the clothing shops in the whole country, all nations of Britain, is quite staggering. And yet 50 years ago, that was almost the opposite.
Right, I know councillor Wright, you're down a second, but your hand was up then down, so I will ask you first, if you don't mind, councillor Mann. Councillor Wright.
Problem, Chair.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, my hand sort of went down accidentally. I must have knocked me mouse or something, sorry. Well, you kind of preempted my first question about the ability to procure within the county, so thank you for that. And the presentation covered the question I had on the appendix regarding how many processes were affected. So I'm only left with just a final thing in terms of, so this is due to be in place at the end of October. In terms of that, I note that the appendix indicated that quite a lot is already there, but then in things that do need to be updated, are we on target? And how will that be reported then as to whether we've hit that target or not, etc., and any reasons why not, for example, what committee, etc.? Would it be here or another committee, for example? Thank you.
Ian, yeah.
I think the interesting part for me was, will UK government and Welsh government be ready for October? I think that's the challenge. It's quite clear. If you undertake the government commerce training, you look at the literature that's out there at the moment, and we've got quite a close working relationship with the likes of Proactis, who are quite prevalent in terms of e-procurement systems and sell to Wales, etc. And there's still quite some ambiguity around that from a central Welsh government perspective. In terms of Caerphilly, we are taking this forward within the team and hopefully the wider organisations. We are planning some sessions now with a Welsh Government representative for the wider organisation as well. And we keep monitoring and updating the action plan going forward. In terms of any other committee around where we are around the October time, I'm not quite sure of that particular answer. And where it goes, obviously, I know Audit and Governance Committee, I know some other committees as well, but I'm not too sure where we
should. So let's hope it's a different government you're dealing with investments, don't it?
Of course.
Jane, can I just come in on that? Obviously, this is forming part of the mobilising team Caerphilly as well and spend control. So we will be monitoring it through that programme as well as reporting into scrutiny like we do every year on procurement, performance, case step strategy. So we will actually be reporting in year, and again, we have reported it previously into Cabinet. I think we're in a good place as any local authority within Wales. We can only move as fast as the Welsh Government does and the information, the secondary legislation that comes out. I think members should realise that a lot of this legislation will now be tested. And that's when we know whether we got it right or wrong, because as we get challenges around some of our procedures and we learn from other organisations already, we've already listened to the Wales Audit Office today saying we need to learn from others. So hopefully the way in which this legislation will be presented within Wales and the way in which Welsh Government will operate some of these councils and monitoring panels that they put it in place, they'll share that information with us and we'll be able to develop it. We've also got the CLEAD platform, which is an electronic platform for sharing best practice around procurement. That's been set up in the last 12 months. I sat on a webinar last week. It's very informative and we should be able to share information through that and hopefully learn from each other.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. Is the second bullet point on page 41. I think probably a lot of us have heard various complaints from small businesses in the past, how difficult it is to work or in fact get involved with council contracts. Is this going to actually make it easier to do that? Well, not only small businesses, the social enterprises as well.
Okay, anyone want to take that? You?
Refer to the answer that Liz gave earlier. Under the existing procurement rules, it never caused us a problem, certainly within Caerphilly. We don't see that going forward under the new rules, in terms of the ability to publish contract pipelines, forward work programs. We've still got our supply relationship officers within Caerphilly working on contracts and approaches and strategies to contracts that suit the local supply chain, and we will continue in that vein going forward. And we see it very much of assisting with the local supply chain going forward with the new regulations as well.
Good. Okay, Colin?
Yeah, okay, Joachim. On the third bullet point, again, none of us would disagree with taking tougher action on underperforming suppliers. Again, will this actually make it easier to do that? Because, you know, people who don't fulfill their obligations cause all sorts of issues, don't they?
Jay, if I can just come in on that one, absolutely, it will help us, but it goes down to the way in which we perform as an organisation and the way in which we monitor suppliers and do our contract management. And unless we follow those rules and inform the suppliers and work with them, then we could fall foul of the legislation ourselves. So on both your points, Councillor Mann, we pride ourselves on the work in which we've done with the SMEs, and we've always taken action against underperforming suppliers. However, there are rules to be followed, and each and every officer of this authority will need to follow them.
Diolch, Liz.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, no other hands. So then, members, the recommendations are on page 43 of your packs. That's scrutiny members' notes. 3.1, the current status of the UK central government and Welsh government procurement reform agendas via the 3 new separate legislative requirements, and 3.2, the council's approach to implementing the new procurement regime. Okay, so I think we have done this evening. Thank you both for coming, Ian and Liz. And Ian, it might be worthwhile just dropping Deborah quick email, ask them what his question was, and you can answer it there. Because you scared him off there. I don't know why. I was either that or his wife. Thank you for coming in. You can be believed one. Okay. Okay, members, on to the last one now tonight, and that's item 9, UK Shared Prosperity Fund, 6 monthly monitoring update report. Councillor Jamie Richard or Deputy Leader?
Well, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update the Scrutiny Committee on delivery of the Shared Prosperity Fund within Caerphilly County Borough. I hope throughout the presentation, members.
Sorry to butt in, Chair. Is it possible to increase the print size at all, Jamie?
No, I don't think that's as much as he can get, but he did email it to you as well, Colin.
And it's in the appendix for this.
Yeah, it's all in the appendix anyway, so.
Good.
Yeah, carry on, please.
Okay. So I hope throughout the presentation, members of the Scrutiny Committee will have an enhanced insight into the programme, will be far more aware of the investments the Council is making across the borough through the innovative utilisation of funds that we have been able to obtain. So the 3 shared prosperity investment priorities are categorised as communities in place, supporting local businesses and people and skills. And as can be seen in the first and second year claim, spend has significantly increased in the second year as compared with the first. In January 2023, CCBC established a Shared Prosperity Programme Board. This board has now been strengthened with further cabinet member involvement and greater oversight. So in terms of some of the bigger investments that members of the Scrutiny Committee may be interested in 5.16 of the board details areas for spend to utilise underspend or slippage in other areas of the programme, and this includes up to £1 million worth of funding to improve the street scene in our most popular spaces in our communities where sufficient underspends elsewhere can be identified, and £1 million of funding which will be used to provide a retrofit training hub at Coleg Cymru as Strathmynedd. When it comes to supporting businesses, the expansion of the Caerphilly Enterprise has accelerated financial support to a growing number of businesses throughout the county borough. In September 2023, the fund had created 149 jobs and secured a further 426. As of today, just 8 months later, the fund has created 225 jobs and safeguarded 883. I think this demonstrates how effective the utilisation of funds can really make a positive impact on businesses and, of course, the wider supply chain. So I turn now, members, to a slideshow which I hope will provide and demonstrate some of the interventions in a more colourful light. And all of this information has been detailed in the report appendix. So slide number 1 shows our 2022 to 2023 Town Centre Events Programme and how this has been supplemented by the Shared Prosperity Fund. This year's events programme has increased on the previous year by utilising the support available. I think this slide demonstrates the success of the events programme with record numbers of attendance seen at many of them, and that's evidenced here. More people on the high street obviously supporting our local businesses. Slide number 2, Mark. As can be seen from the events business feedback, we have been able to gather the views of many businesses across the county borough. This slide includes comments from businesses at 4 of the events in Risca, Ystrad, Caerphilly and Blackwood. I just want to say, as a cabinet member, the business community is integral, obviously, to the success of the events. By having that relationship, we've been able to plan ahead for future years. Slide 3. So the Business Enterprise and Renewal team hosts numerous clinics throughout the county borough where businesses can find out more about local support available through a variety of organisations. I recently attended one of these in Risca, and I sent members at the whole council an email just to advertise some upcoming business clinics in Nutriega and Penata. The clinics have been an ideal opportunity to meet with local businesses and explain the SPF grants that could be available to grow their companies, and the types of sector grants allocated are obviously shown on this slide. Slide number 4. So we have publicised a number of business case studies on our social media and in the press to emphasise the support available. And this brings a more human story to how the funding has tangibly made a difference to individual-based businesses, both to safeguard and create employment. And the range of businesses could vary considerably, as this slide demonstrates. An equestrian centre in a rural setting in Llanboil and a refurbishment project in Bargoed Town Centre has allowed both businesses to grow. Next slide. So aims to deliver support, training and employment are key interventions. And the Caerphilly Employment Support Team have provided employability support to 375 people through the People and Skills programme. 795 of these have accessed in-work support and 727 customers have completed a qualification. Slide. So the Caerphilly Employment Support Mentors and their participants recently celebrated their journeys and the support they've received through the Caerphilly Employment Support Programmes. And Louise Aston, who is our team leader in the employability programme, said the merger of these two teams has allowed us to provide a streamlined and flexible service to meet the needs of the Caerphilly residents in relation to the employment support by both the Welsh Government and the UK Shared Prosperity team. Slide. Shared Prosperity Fund has contributed to the new Caerphilly development, meaning the council core budget only represents a tiny fraction of the overall cost. There has been a wide range of businesses that have been supported by this earmarked funding, and early indications are telling us that the estimate of 40 to 50 jobs being created at the site is likely to be a conservative estimate. Slide. The Town Centre team ordered the principal towns where additional funding can be secured through the SPF. There have been examples offered in the appendix, and this slide demonstrates several SPF projects in the town of Blackwood. 2 more slides to go. Developing and the community support fund and mobilising engagement. 86 community groups supported within the county borough, 70 welcoming spaces established and maintained. Caerphilly Cares Gateway have taken over 5,000 calls and received over 7,500 emails requesting help. And this slide just provides a snapshot of that support. Finally. And this final slide just focuses on the health and well-being of the Sport Caerphilly Facility Grant. The SPF programme has helped to facilitate a number of interventions to improve health and well-being, with a few examples on this slide. The Sport Caerphilly Facility Grant has been developed to support community clubs within the borough. Hope that's been able to just share a few of the bits of information there in the chair. Obviously, all of this was in the appendix. And thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Pritchard. And can I, firstly, before I open up for questions, can I thank you for all the work that you've done? And I know I see on my Facebook pages, you know, all the, you're turning up at all these events with your little girl as well, and she's enjoying the days out too, I'm sure, spending time with Dad. But it is, you're leading from example, you know, you are, and that's great to see, you know, so thank you very much. And I'm sure the people that's attended these events, and I can see the pictures now there, they've had a wonderful time. So, okay, members, over to questions then. Any questions on this? Oh, Gary?
Yeah, I am here, Chair. Apologies. Every time I turn the camera off, I lose connection. You thought I was asleep, didn't you?
Go for dinner, but
you thought I'd go on for tea. I'll be very quick on this one because I've got a bit of a conflict of interest because obviously I run a business in Estromurrock, so I'll try and not include that because I've seen some comments that our business have given. But it's just to highlight a concern and leave it with you, Jamie, really, just on the footfall. I've always struggled with the figures that I think it's Ian Mullins produce, because I'll give you an example. In Estromurrock, we've got a fixed camera and it clicks people walking back and forth, you know, and that generates the footfall. And my observation is on some of the fair days is the multiple counting, because if you walk past this lamppost, say 5, 6, 7 times, it clicks you 5, 6, 7 times. So I'm not quite sure that the footfall figures that we get are 100% accurate and not duplicating, you know, multiple people walking back and forth. And it's been a concern for a while because obviously I run a shop. We're not seeing that level of footfall in the actual shops itself. Around the market, yeah, absolutely. But I have to say, I've got to take my hat off to you. The events itself, they're spectacular from a business perspective. They're spot on. You know, they're generating interest. They're bringing people in. But you know, I'll just come back to that footfall and leave it with you to ensure that, you know, those figures are robust and accurate. If you're happy, you know, then that's fine. But just from a shop perspective, it's just to raise that, really. Thanks, mate.
Hey, Jamie.
Thank you for listening to your feedback comments and to Councillor Enroy for his kind comments. Just to say that the events, obviously, they're extremely popular. They do very well. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the residents and the businesses for working so proactively with the council to make sure these events go ahead, and long may that continue. On the issue of footfall, I totally understand the point you raised there, Gary. Double counting, we get the weekly footfall figures. The counters haven't moved, I don't think, for a long time. I think we should be looking at least looking at this, because changing footfall patterns, and footfall is one part of the issue. Obviously, if you've got a lot of people in a town centre, that looks good, but where's the spend? So perhaps we have to factor in other things. I'd be happy to take that up with you, Gary, or any other member. It's certainly something I have flagged with officers, and I think we need to discuss that issue. But definitely a point with making the guy. Thank you.
The votes were Alan Darlingmore here, so Alan.
I'll just pick up on the point about footfall counters and those contracts are coming up for renewal. It is fairly old technology, and we are looking at alternative ways of measuring footfall and usage of our town centres, including mobile phone technology, the use of Wi-Fi in our town centres. All of our town centres now have Wi-Fi, and looking at opportunities to utilise that IT capability to get better measures for footfall in our towns.
Most of them's got Wi-Fi as well. connected around the world. So, okay, thank you all. Good question, Gary. Thank you very much. For that there.
Cheers, Chair.
Okay, members, I don't see any more hands up, so the recommendations are on page 61 and 62 of your packs. That Scrutiny Committee note the detail of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund update and 6-monthly monitoring report and the opportunities for the programme to contribute to the Council's own place shaping, transformation and regeneration agendas. Number 2, recognise the progress officers and stakeholders have made in mobilising a significant investment programme within the time constraints supported by the funded programme, which we have done this evening. And I think Gary's pointing out that the events are drawing people in, and we can see that with the numbers. So I think carry on what you're doing, because you're doing something right, guys. Okay. Okay, members, that's us for tonight. There's no more votes, no more anything. So can I thank all our Mark and our girls over there who keep us online, keep trying running it. Not an easy job at times with our technology, but thank you all and have a nice evening.
No star, Bob.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks,
Bye.
Mark. Thanks,